This episode of the School Zone podcast is brought to you by School Spirit Vending, hassle-free year-round fundraising for your school. At School Spirit Vending, we do all the work. You cash the check. Hey, School Zone listeners. This is Matt coming at you from fundraising and resource headquarters here in Stephenville, Texas. I am really excited about having our guest on the show today, a guy by the name of Jeff Gooden. Jeff began his career as an acrobatic slam dunk artist in '96, touring with the number one halftime act in basketball, the Slam Dunk Daredevils. He traveled the world with the Daredevils, where he was not only a performer but also director of operations. Jeff left the Daredevils in '98 and then signed with the Boston Celtics to become their very first mascot in their organization's history. After 2 seasons with the Celtics, he and his family moved to Dallas, where he signed with the Dallas Mavericks, and I think performed with them for 12 years or so. Jeff's performed at over 750 NBA games, 300-plus NCAA games. He's been on America's Got Talent, ESPN Sports Center, the NCAA Final Four, the NBA All-Star Game, and looks like he has traveled all over the globe performing for audiences. So really excited to have Jeff here. Today, we're here to talk not only about some of his backstory, but also more specifically to talk about what he and his team have the ability to do for schools and assemblies for schools. So, Jeff, excited to have you here. Say hello to the School Zone audience.
Hello, School Zone audience. Matt, thanks for having me, man. This is great.
Yeah, grateful to have you here. So tell us a little bit about how you got into performing. And, that's not a normal career path that most people kind of wake up one day and as a kid and say, I want to be a NBA mascot, So how did all that come about?
Yeah, no, I certainly wasn't one of them. I've learned there's a few, more than I thought there would be. But, I was not one of them that grew up wanting to be a mascot. No, I get asked that question a lot. It seems like that profession found me more than me finding it. But, no, I was a gymnast in college. In fact, that's where I met my wife and got out of college and into college, and right afterwards was managing a little fly fishing shop, and I had seen the Daredevils on ESPN several times, and I said, man, I got to go audition for that group. And they were based out of Memphis, and I was in St. Louis at the time, but tracked them down, was able to talk to the owner, and man, I drove down within 30 minutes of getting off the phone with him, took a trip down to Memphis, had the worst audition ever. But he liked my attitude and work ethic and said, man, we'll give you a chance to try. So the rest is kind of history. Just worked my tail off. But it was fun. It really is a truth is stranger than fiction kind of story, I suppose.
How did you were a gymnast. You did the stuff with the Daredevils for several years. How did you decide, or what made you decide to break away from that and actually start doing some work with the Celtics and the NBA?
Well, that is funny. As I was starting with the Daredevils, several of the guys who'd been performing before me had kind of starting to migrate towards the NBA. At some point in the mid to late 90s, it became kind of fashionable to have a mascot that could flip and dunk and tumble and do stunts. And I think we probably have the Phoenix Gorilla to thank for that. He was a gymnast at Arizona State, but the Daredevils at the time were the only team in the world doing these, mini tramp slam dunk shows. There's quite a few now, mostly because the Daredevils spread out all over the country and started training guys in each city. But so that was the Celtics called me. I'd been with the Daredevils for a couple years, and I came home one day, and Jeannie, my wife, says, "Hey, you got a call today from Marty with the Boston Celtics." And I said, "What?" That's not something you expect to come home and hear. So I called him back, and he offered me a chance to come down and audition. They were creating a brand new character. They had never had one before, and that was quite an experience. The Celtics are a traditional organization, and they had no entertainment, no dancers, no cheerleaders. I mean, the halftime shows usually were a guy sweeping the floor. They wanted it to be all about hoops. And then here comes some idiot dressing up like a leprechaun, rappelling in from the ceiling, flipping off trampolines.
So were Larry Bird and Kevin McHale still there when you were there with the Celtics?
No, Larry Bird was coaching at the Pacers.
Okay.
And McHale, I saw him a couple times, but he didn't live in Boston, I don't think, at the time. Bob Cousy was doing radio. In fact, I got asked one time after, I guess, 10, 12 games into my first season. I used to jump on the scores table during the intros just to try to get the crowd up. And somebody came to me after a game one time and said, "Hey, could you stop jumping on the scores table with the lights down? Because you're scaring the fire out of Bob Cousy." Okay, fair enough. Please send my apologies. In fact, I think I did apologize to him. I saw him on the team plane, which was really cool. And I said, "Hey, I'm sorry about jumping on the scores table right in front of you." I think I still jumped up there. I just did it in a different spot.
Right.
Yeah.
Wow. So then how did you change the hearts of the Celtic organization, to allow you to actually do some performing? Or did you get a chance to do a whole lot those couple of years?
I did a little bit, but not a lot. It was really Coach Patino whose idea it was to have a mascot. He had, I guess, been on a recruiting trip, I think, to Notre Dame, and saw their mascot, which is not a costumed character. It's just a guy who can grow a red beard usually and dresses up like a leprechaun.
Right.
So he said, "Man, we got to do that." And he wanted, new energy. It was a different era. Bird and McHale and Parrish, they weren't around anymore. So when the team was struggling, when I was there, we never made the playoffs. It was a different team. But so Coach Patino told me that he talked Red into it, because I think Red Auerbach, he's a traditional basketball guy. So he told me that he talked Red into it, which I'm still not sure about. Because there was probably half the organization, ticket sales guys, corporate sales, community relations, that were really upset that the team had a mascot. There were people that wouldn't talk to me.
Wow.
So I got to do a little bit of stuff. They let me do a lot of stunts, and they let me do some rappelling. But as far as comedic sort of typical mascot skits, I did a few, but not a lot. I had to really put on my selling hat to convince the game operations crew to let me do that. But when I did, they went really well.
So was it different then when you switched over to the Mavs?
Yeah, completely. The Mavs were totally different. I came in, the character's called Mavs Man, and it's pretty much it looks like Spider-Man with basketball print. It's really stuntman, superhero type of character. So, but I had free reign to do whatever I wanted. I had, budget for props and all kinds of stuff. I had a motorcycle that I ride on the court, and we could do Tarzan swings out of the ceiling pregame. It was almost unlimited in the beginning.
That's awesome.
It was really cool. As the team got better, my opportunities started to decrease, because the corporate sales now has the opportunity to sell timeouts and mentions and things like that. So they don't need to rely on me quite as much, because they got corporate sales folks selling stuff, because the Mavs are doing really well.
Right. I always used to love, let's see, this would have been 85 to 89, so before your time with the Mavs. But my roommate at the Air Force Academy was a guy by the name of Jeff Joseph, and he was next door neighbors with Steve Alford, who played for the Mavs for a number of years, and was Mr. Basketball for Indiana.
Yeah, he played for Coach Knight.
Yeah. So anyway, we got a chance to see the Mavs play at the Air Force Academy annually while we were there. And, of course, Steve was playing with the team for at least a couple of those years. So got a chance to hang out with the team, after games and all that. And it was I was floored how tall all those guys were, man. Yeah. It was crazy.
Yeah, that's what my grandma used to say. I like that little guy, Steve Nash. And I go, Grandma, he's like 6'4". He's not that little.
But he looks little compared to everybody else.
Yeah. I think the average height is 6'10" among the players in the NBA. Yeah, they're just giants.
Wow. So when did Mark Cuban take over ownership of the organization? A lot of the School Zone folks are saying, okay, you guys haven't talked a thing about school yet. I'm sorry, guys, we're getting to that. I'm just having fun talking about some of the backstory. This is cool. So when did Mark Cuban take over during your reign there with the Mavs?
He was right around 2000. So he was taking over as I came here.
Gotcha.
And I did the last season at Reunion, and then we moved to American Airlines Center, and that sort of started the Mark Cuban era in earnest. Although I think technically he owned the team the year before. and possibly even the year before that, at least for part of it. I don't know how the transition all works, but there was a lot of changes once we moved from Reunion to the American Airlines Center. It just things got to be different.
Right. So how did all of this, experience in the NBA and traveling all over the world doing live performances to huge audiences, how did that transition for you to working with schools and doing school assemblies and that type of thing?
Yeah, it's one of my passions has always been speaking, and I love taking the things that sort of the experience that I've had. Zig Ziglar had a big impact on me when I was young, and I loved listening to the motivational Zig Ziglar, just the stories. And I always thought, man, if I'd heard a lot of these principles, like Zig used to say that if you do the things you need to do when you need to do them, the day will come when you can do the things you want to do when you want to do them. And I didn't hear that till I was older in life, and I thought, man, if I could use the stuff that we're doing, the flips, the dunks, the stunts, and try to communicate these messages, then that would be incredible. And I had no idea how to do it. When we started doing the mascot stuff, a big part of the job, in addition to games, is doing outside appearances. And it wasn't uncommon to go do school appearances. And I started to realize, boy, around Red Ribbon Week or the STAR testing, there's a lot of opportunities to get into schools for anti-bullying. But when I was with the Mavs, I was somewhat limited on what the message could be. I'm in a costume, so you can't really talk. So I had an assistant who would go with me, and he would do some of the messaging stuff, but it always felt kind of clumsy. I didn't enjoy it as much. So I started a team called Team Big Air. In fact, when I was still with the Mavs the last couple of years, and started doing a handful of school assemblies and just corporate events, still did some halftime for NBA and college. But that's how it grew. And it just spread by word of mouth. And we love it. We still do, like I said, some NBA halftime, a handful of colleges. We go overseas to do stuff for NBA on occasion, but you never get to connect with people, especially kids, like you do at the school assemblies, because when those are over, especially when the school days end, we do them in the afternoon. It's just really cool to hang out with the kids and talk to them and talk to the administrators and PTA, and they're just awesome people.
So talk a little bit about some of the different formats or messages that you guys are prepared to share, depending on what a school's needs are.
We do, the standards are kind of, easy. We do Red Ribbon Week, we do a bunch of those. In fact, this one coming up in October, we're almost full. We still have a few slots available, but not a lot. And then in the spring, we have an assembly called Slam Dunk the Star for, of course, the STAR tests, and it's kind of a, preparation, and that those weeks get kind of busy also. We also do anti-bullying. We've got a Read to Achieve program, and then one that we do just about making good choices. And that's one, the truth is that decision-making, making good choices is, that's part of the message to any assembly that we do, because that's what it's all about, whether it's Red Ribbon Week, STAR test, anti-bullying, it's all about decision-making and making good choices.
We're here with Jeff Gooden, and we'll be back in just a second. Are you an educator, administrator, or school volunteer looking for a simpler way to raise money for your school? Let School Spirit Vending put their hassle-free year-round fundraising program to work for you. School Spirit Vending, we do all the work, you cash the check. Go to schoolspiritvending.com/school zone for all the details. All right, we're back. So you mentioned, Jeff, Team Big Air. What kind of facility is needed for that? Obviously, you do a bunch of aerobatics and acrobatics, that type of thing with some of your shows. So if a school is potentially wanted to work with you guys and have you come in, what are your needs within the facility itself for that program?
We don't need a lot. The most of them are in elementary schools, so there's elementary school gyms aren't usually big. So obviously a gym is real helpful with a basketball hoop. And we take up pretty much a strip down the middle that's maybe 10 feet wide. And we'll usually just put orange cones and then, bring the kids in and put them on the floor. The closer they are, the better. So the gym usually is where we do it. We do have access to a real sturdy portable goal and have done a handful, outside, just, if it's field day, someday when it's going to be, nice and sunny out. So we can do them outside and have, but usually, and 99 times out of 100, it's in the gym.
Okay, so we got Team Big Air, but then you also have what's called the Mojo Show. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, it's a Mojo the monkey. It's a 10-foot inflatable kind of walk-around character monkey. This is it's a similar cost, really similar shape to when I was with the Mavs, early 2000s. This company started making these things, and I got one done as Mavsman. So it's pretty much a custom costume, but it's 10 feet tall and inflatable. So, Mavsman's the size of a person. I'm 5'10", so that was the height of Mavsman. But this thing's 10 feet tall. It looks like a giant balloon that runs around, and the performer's inside, and there's nothing tethered to it. It's all powered and inflated from the inside. And it is the funniest thing ever. By the time I left the Mavs, those inflatable characters were the number one most popular in-game entertainment element amongst the season ticket holder surveys. So I used to do Mavsman inflatables for assembly sometimes. If they didn't have a gym, or they didn't have basketball hoops in the gym or something, we would do the inflatable Mavsman in the cafeteria or cafetorium or wherever. We did a few in the library, even if the ceiling's high enough. But the thing's just hilarious. It's very engaging. It's just a lot of fun to use. So it's entertainment like the basketball, the dunk show is, but it's just a lot less acrobatic, and it's just funny. It's different, although the messages usually are pretty much the same.
So in other words, you can do either show and cater to all those same messages, depending on what the school wants, maybe what their school population is, that type of thing. Yep, exactly. Yeah, I like doing, like for anti-bowling especially, I really like doing the acrobatic slam dunk show, the Team Big Air, because the performers are pretty built. We'd add a couple of feats of strength, like I'll rip a phone book in half or roll up a frying pan, and it seems to add to the impact of the message, the anti-bowling message. We've one of my key performer, his name is Joseph Gibby. In fact, he does an NVA show on his own, halftime show called Static Strength. He's a hand balancing artist, and he just got back yesterday to the Metroplex. He's been in California performing cirque shows, doing tramp wall and Chinese pole all summer long. He's just stud, world-class athlete, national champion gymnast. So I think there's something more impactful in a anti-bowling assembly when you see, some dude up front who's just jacked, big dude, but great attitude, just the kindest heart you could imagine. So it has a unique impact. That's awesome. What is an ideal school for you guys? Is there kind of a qualifier? Is there kind of, a size of school, a size of audience, a demographic or anything like that? Or what have you found in your years of doing this?
Man, it's been everything. Yeah, it's that's one of the cool things I think about, especially the dunk show, is it was funny. Several years ago, I was doing an assembly at a middle school. And my good buddy from the Spurs was with me. He was the coyote down there for years and years and years. And we were getting we were heading over to the school. He said, I want to come with you and see how you do the assemblies. And it was going to be a dunk assembly. And he said, we're going to middle school? And he goes, man, I'd rather perform at a prison than a middle school. And I said, man, don't worry. This is going to be fun. And he was blown away because the kids, everybody likes the flipping and the dunking. I think it is one of the few shows that could be pulled off in middle schools. That's one of the more difficult audiences, but we've done it for high schools, but even the early elementary schools. And we've done them, deep downtown Dallas, done way out in the country where there's, 15 kids. As far as we're concerned as performers, if there's a full gym or if there's 10 people in there, it doesn't matter. We're doing the same thing.
Awesome. Now, do you guys do all your stuff primarily in Texas, or will you guys go pretty much anywhere, and do you?
Yeah, we'll go anywhere. We wind up doing in February and March a lot of there's a basketball league called Upward Awards. Well, we do the award ceremony, Upward Basketball League, and those things are nationwide. So, last year we did them, and we'll a lot of times partner or sort of combine some school assemblies with those award ceremonies. And we did them as far east as West Palm Beach, Florida, and as far west as Albuquerque, New Mexico. And we went up to Chicago even for a few. So we'll do them all over the place. I'd prefer staying home because we got my wife and I have 4 kids. So the more we're home, the better.
Talk a little bit about maybe some success stories, the impact that or the feedback you've gotten from schools after you guys have come in and done some of your performances, because obviously the entire goal, at least as I see it as an outsider, is to inspire change, positive change in the kids that you guys are performing for. So, what kind of feedback have you gotten, and what kind of impact?
That's my favorite part. In fact, we got last year, one of the last assemblies we did was at a middle school, and oftentimes the PTA will schedule the assemblies and pay for it, and there's they don't communicate a whole lot sometimes with the administration. But I had the principal come up to me right afterwards. I mean, she was the first one. She said, "Thank you so much." She goes, "That was fantastic." She said, "I was so nervous because last year we had some guy come in and it was Red Ribbon Week. So they're talking about, drugs and alcohol." And he said, "Man, this guy started laying out his story about how he did drugs and he was partying, and said he must have spent half the time talking about all the, terrible things he did." And he went into great detail. And that's one of the things that I will not do. So I just really try to avoid the idea of glamorizing that kind of behavior in any way. Because you can let somebody know there's poor decisions to be made. You don't have to tell them about the things that a lot of times middle school kids will think, well, that sounds like fun. Shoot, this guy turned out okay, and he did all that partying. So I just keep it, it's almost wholly focused on, making good choices. So we don't come in with a story about, being down and out in the gutter and drugs did this to me and that to me. And then I finally made some better choices and got out of it. So that was some of the other, I was really encouraged by that. It's also fun every now and then, especially at middle school or elementary schools, the teachers will have the kids, draw up little things, and they probably come back and they have an hour to kill. So the kids will draw a thank you note for Team Big Air, and they'll draw pictures of us jumping and flipping through the air and thank you for this match. And every now and then there'll be some kid who writes something in that note that you can tell that something that one of us said really touched them, and it's fun. It definitely makes the sprained ankles and having to stretch out and the minor injuries, bruised wrists, it makes it all worth it.
If you were to look, the next 2 to 5 years, what would be your prayer for your business and for what you guys are doing for schools around the country?
Man, this is my wife and I spend a lot of time praying about this. It just be having as many opportunities as we can to make an impact. And one of the neat things about the business that I'm finding out, and this I wasn't anticipating, is the impact that it's having on a lot of the performers. And that's been really cool, especially, some of them are young guys, and it's hard to find, people who have the talent, gymnastics level talent, and the good attitude, and are willing to project themselves at fixed objects at great risk. A lot of people will do that are just nut jobs. They're just crazy people. Not necessarily drug addicts. They're just adrenaline junkies. It's a unique personality. And several of those guys, and they're good people. They're not bad guys, but a lot of those people have been, get a chance to put them into the show a little bit. And it's neat to see the impact that the assemblies and the talks that we do, that I do mainly on, making good choices, what the impact that has on them. That's really cool. But, my prayer mainly is just that we can open up as many avenues to, spread the message, make positive impact, and just, keep moving forward. The more assemblies we get to do, the better.
If a school has interest in potentially, partnering with you guys for an assembly or an event, what's your URL or website? What's a good phone number and email to reach you at?
Yeah, website is championfactory.net. It's championfactory.net. That's sort of the umbrella that we perform under. There's a few different acts, and we also do some corporate events and a handful of other shows. But you could also do teambigair.com. That'll take you to the same website, teambigair.com. And my email is simple, just Jeff, Jeff at jeffgooden.com. Gooden is Goodin. So Jeff at jeffgooden.com's email, or just call me. My cell phone number is 972-571-4295.
And I assume that you're still booking for, this entire school year, right?
Yep. Yep, we sure are. Yep, Red Ribbon Week's getting kind of full, and we're starting to take a few for the spring. But yeah, we've got a ton of availability left for this school year.
Great. Well, Jeff, I appreciate you being on the show. Any last parting thoughts you'd like to leave with our audience at all?
I can't. Nothing that comes straight to mind. Just I certainly appreciate the opportunities we've had so far, and at the schools that we have performed for, and I've really been impressed with the level. I guess what high caliber people the PTA folks are. I know, having 4 kids, I know how difficult it can be. My wife's been involved in PTA. She was the health and fitness chair for our elementary school, and man, those PTA folks are. Not only are they usually moms and they get a ton of stuff going on at home, but there's just a ton of responsibility. There's a lot asked of them, and they treat it like a job. They're very professional. I've been really impressed with that, and just good folks, great-hearted people.
Yeah, they do a great job and are some of the unsung heroes, I think, in our schools. So,
yeah, for sure.
I'm very grateful for them, and we in my company do a lot of work with them as well. So, well, thank you, Jeff, very much for your time. I know you got a busy schedule. And look forward to talking to you again real soon.
Absolutely. Anytime. Thank you, Matt.